And here we go.
Oh, hot damn. What is going on, everybody? Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's been a while, but never fear, because I have returned. First and foremost, before I start this, this is going to be finally a review of Spider-Man Homecoming. Probably an alternate view than most people have got going on right now. It seems like there's an overwhelmingly positive, and by all means, as a lead-in, I really enjoyed the movie. However, I am not going to heap it the type of praise that I have seen where people are saying it's the best Spider-Man movie, the most perfect Spider-Man movie. I have an alternate take, and we're going to give a spoiler-free review, a score, and then we're going to have a little bit of spoiler talk and kind of get into some things that maybe swayed my position from being great to merely being a really good, enjoyable Marvel movie, which is exactly what this movie was. Again, I apologize that I have been gone for a while. The channel just keeps on ticking. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. It has been a hot minute since that Wonder Woman review, and before that, there was only one other video in the last 2 months, which was the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 review. There is a lot of awesome things coming that I have been working on. I just haven't decided to kind of get on and give a channel update. This will be your little channel update right now. I've been working on some things. More things are coming. Decided just, to do things that I really enjoy and just have fun with, and hopefully you guys will really enjoy that. This is a more of a discussion, and rather than being kind of a really professionally done review and things like that, I just feel like the interaction is a little bit better when I do it like this. Anyways, without further ado, sorry for that long-winded introduction. Thank you for bearing with me. Let's talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. Spider-Man Homecoming is the first MCU Spider-Man movie, and Sony and Marvel have created this partnership, this venture, to where Marvel can put Spidey in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Sony still gets to produce it. Which is probably why this seemed like one big Audi commercial. It was ridiculous. It was pretty funny, actually. A lot of it played into the humor of the movie, so I'm good with that. But Spider-Man Homecoming, it stars Tom Holland as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and then we obviously have Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man in this one, and of course, Batman himself, Michael Keaton, playing Adrian Toomes / the Vulture. And we had a lot of great supporting characters. Marissa Tomei, who plays Aunt May, a really cool, updated, younger version of Aunt May, a little bit quirkier. Maybe you can see a little bit where Peter gets his nerdiness from, because she's very, very silly. Great representation of a kind of a modern Aunt May. Of course, Jon Favreau, who I love. He is so great. It's great that he cast himself as Happy Hogan back in the original Iron Man, because I love when he returns. He is awesome as Happy, and has a great number of funny scenes in this movie. In general, what happens in Spider-Man Homecoming is essentially an origin story, a coming-of-age high school John Hughes type fun comedy centered around Spider-Man. It doesn't do the Uncle Ben thing. So we get an origin story without having to redo with great power comes great responsibility, and we've seen that story twice on the big screen, many times in the comics. It's there, we know. And there's definitely emotional scenes where, Peter does describe it, but not really get into it. And I'm glad that we kind of left that in the past and we're kind of moving on the future. What is great about it, I will get into the things that I think are really excellent. It is very funny. It is simply just a really brisk, enjoyable movie from start to finish. Each act has kind of a good punctuated set piece that kind of goes around it. and in the beginning, middle, and end, and I think that that's a really good structure. It seems to be like a lot of these comic book movies coming out lately have had that. They have like a really nice piece in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. It opens with this charming little video that Peter Parker is making about his adventures during Civil War when he got to steal Cap's shield and saw Black Widow, and it was really, really great. I really enjoyed that beginning piece of the movie. And as we kind of go on, we see that Peter is trying to deal with his high school drama, his, being a kid, but he wants to be an Avenger. So he really, really wants to put his best foot forward in trying to impress Tony Stark, but he's sick of being treated as a kid, which, it's totally understandable. You get a young man who has that type of powers and that type of gift, and he's brilliant. It really gets frustrating, I'm sure. But in the end, what makes all that work is that Tom Holland is fantastic. He is probably, there's no probably about it, he's the best incarnation of both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. When I was talking to my brother Jake, obviously we know him from the channel, even though he hasn't been on in a while. The reason I think that it kind of doesn't 100% work in the other films, you got a fantastic representation from Tobey Maguire of Peter Parker. And there were some flaws in the Spider-Man aspect. He's not as quippy or jokey, or it's not something that he was very adept at, was Tobey, in doing that. And, people complained about the organic web shooters, and it doesn't really matter. There was a lot of things in Spider-Man's representation that they kind of didn't enjoy necessarily in that aspect. Andrew Garfield, he was a really amazing Spider-Man, pun not intended. He was a great Spider-Man. The complaints about his Peter Parker, that he was just almost too good looking, I guess, I don't know. I don't really share that so much, but I can see where people didn't necessarily enjoy his Peter Parker. He was almost more like the Flash Thompson. He was a little bit more cool. I know he was weird. I know he was nerdy, in my opinion, but I can understand the frustration. Tom Holland, you were able to get a sense that it's just perfect on both sides of the coin. He's able to play both halves beautifully. And he's a great casting. Plus, he looks like a kid. It's not like Tobey, where he looked, quite a bit older. Same thing with Andrew Garfield, really. And he looks like a kid. And it's believable that this high school movie is set all the way through high school because everybody is a kid, essentially. And I really enjoyed that part of the movie. And I'll tell you what else really stuck out to me that was really, really well done was Adrian Toomes, Michael Keaton's character for the Vulture. One, he was badass. That costume was awesome. It was kind of practical. I loved that as a villain, you can understand his story. They set it up right at the beginning. Before you ever see anything from Spider-Man or anything like that, you get right into his backstory as to why this is a story that you can understand the villain in. And I loved that about this movie. And it really, really does a good job of presenting him as an understandable character. That's what makes the best villains. And I really, really enjoyed his iteration of the Vulture. He goes around and he's trying to steal all of these different items that came from the Battle of New York and the Chitauri. And this, this great, almost like a scavenger, just like a vulture, where he goes in and tries to steal and then sell it on the black market. And I just thought that was an awesome way to go about things to present his character. I thought it was really, really well done. You could almost say that, his buddy Ned, who was played by Jacob Batalon, this boy almost got as much screen time as Tom Holland. Almost, it seems like. It was pretty funny. But I enjoyed the fact that this was just a very fun movie. I didn't think that it took too many risks. I think that was probably one thing that I wish I could have got more out of this movie. Is it feels safe. It feels like a very safe movie. At least with the Amazing Spider-Man and Raimi's Spider-Mans, you could say that things were a bit more visceral and that it was a little bit more dire straits. There is a scene we'll talk about when it comes to spoiler time that elevated the movie for me. It was really just enjoyable and kind of for a lot of the runtime. You know, just a really good, solid movie. And then we finally got to a couple scenes near the end of the movie, even though I thought that the ending was okay, that really turned it on for me. And this is after a second viewing, because I feel like, and this is a big reason why I didn't get this review out before, I feel like I would have been more harsh on this movie had I not gone back and seen it a second time. Because my nitpicks were much, much greater. I think that that's where I was lacking. I thought that there was a little bit of an emotional punch that wasn't there. And that's what Robert Downey Jr. brought in the middle of the movie. I thought that he was handled very well in this movie because there wasn't very much of him actually there in this movie, which is great because I was really worried in the trailers that this was going to be an Iron Man movie with Spider-Man in it. And it wasn't that. Thank God, it wasn't. Spider-Man Homecoming is a really enjoyable movie. It is not without flaws. It is not without screenwriting 101 beat by beat things that happen in the movie. But it is very funny. It is extremely well acted and well cast. And I thought that John Watts, the director, did a really good job. I mean, once again, his forte has not been big budget superhero movies or things like that, but I think we've seen that as long as someone has a grasp on how to present characters and how to write, they have these amazing teams around them at DC and Marvel, and you know, you should get somebody who knows how to tell a story. Steven Spielberg is a fantastic, spectacle director, but the reason why he's so good at that is because he knows how to tell a story. That's why there's only been one Jaws, in my eyes. All these clones out there, they can't reproduce the same things. That's why. It's because people are able to tell stories with great characters and then have the spectacle surrounding them. And that's why it works. And this is another example of a really good movie. And that's why it works. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and get into scoring this movie because I do want to talk about spoiler things. So if I was going to score Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm very happy to report that Spidey has come back to the big screen in a really big way. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8 out of 10. Obviously, as I said, not a perfect movie, but I really enjoyed it. Really, really very much enjoyed it. Obviously, the precursor I led with in this review, as I said, I had some things to nitpick about, and I will. And I will definitely talk about those things. But I'll also talk about some things that I thought was really cool that they sprinkled in there. It's spoiler time. So this is your last chance. If you haven't seen the movie, or you want to kind of get a fresh experience, definitely click away now, and then come back to this review afterwards, so that we can talk about this stuff, and maybe I'll have some extra nuggets in there that you didn't catch while you were watching the movie. First and foremost, I will go ahead and talk about the things that I thought were really, really cool that they kind of added in there for fans of the series and fans of the comic. I gotta say, there was plenty and plenty to catch there if you were paying attention. The first thing I thought that was really great was Donald Glover. He was cast as Aaron Davis, who in the comics is known as the Prowler, and he is the uncle of Miles Morales. And he mentioned his nephew that lives in this neighborhood. And that is the first cinematic mention of Miles Morales, who eventually does become Spider-Man. And I thought that that was really, really awesome that they sprinkled that little tidbit in there. I also kind of loved the fact that we got these very small mentions of other Spider-Man villains in his rogue gallery, like the Shocker. For a second there, Logan Marshall Green, at the beginning of the movie, I really thought that that was Tom Hardy, and then we got a little Eddie Brock cameo, but that, I was wrong. That was right away, after he spoke for a minute, I was like, okay, that's not Tom Hardy. But we also got Matt Gargan, who is Scorpion. Little spoiler there on the Staten Island ferry when they said, oh, we can still do the Gargan deal. I'm like, oh, Scorpion's gonna be in this movie. Okay, cool. So there was a couple villains mentioned, which was really, really great. We got to see Betty Brant, up on the screen there, where at the news station inside the high school, which was really cool. I thought that was great. I think one of the more nuanced touches was the Peter Spider-Man suit. Obviously, Karen, the suit that, it talks to him, and he names her Karen. That was Jennifer Connelly's voice, who is married to Paul Bettany, who plays the Vision now, but was Jarvis in the original Iron Man and Iron Man 2, and I believe all the way up through Avengers Age of Ultron. He was actually Jarvis. And I just thought that was just... I mean, obviously, I don't know don't know for sure that was intentional, but I definitely think that was a really cool touch. Just because Jennifer Connelly is awesome, and I just thought that kind of keeping it in the family, it was pretty cool. Obviously, there was a lot of things in there, and I could go over them all day long as far as, what they did that was really, really cool as an Easter egg. A lot of Captain America. Definitely loved those videos. That were hilarious. Probably the best line was by Hannibal Buress, who played the coach, where Cap was giving a speech, and he goes, I know this guy's probably is actually labeled a war criminal right now, but I got it. It's on the curriculum, so I got to show it to you. That just killed me. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There was a third act twist in this movie that I spoke about earlier, but I didn't obviously reveal, that just really elevated it for me better than it was, because it was definitely down in like the 7 range. A really good, enjoyable movie, and this bumped it up to where it was up in the 8. But Liz, who Peter was crushing on, and he gets to go out with her finally once, Tony takes his suit away. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And he goes to the house, and there is the Vulture, who he's been squaring off with for about the last 40 minutes of the movie. The whole crowd, both times I went, I loved the reaction, and I've had the same reaction. It was like, oh shit! Whoa! Wow! Didn't see that coming. Screenwriting 101. It's just like your brain does not put that together, You don't think, and it may just be because of, obviously, the ethnicities were different. It's a mixed couple, so maybe your brain just didn't put that together, and I absolutely loved it. And the subsequent scene and it's the best scene in the movie. Better than all the Spider-Man scenes. It's better than anything with special effects, with Robert Downey Jr., all that stuff. It's the best scene in the movie. And it's 3 people in a car just talking. And each one of them is feeling something different and has a different agenda. Peter knows that he's the Vulture. And he knows that that's Liz's dad. And now what is he going to do? He doesn't want to hurt the girl that he cares about. But that man is a bad man. And he's doing bad things. And he knows he has to stop him. And he's so shocked as a 15-year-old that he can't handle keeping that to himself. He gives it away. And as Michael Keaton's Adrian Toomes is figuring out that Peter is Spider-Man, is really interesting how that happens. And you get that Michael Keaton way of delivering lines. Like your old pal Spider-Man. It was awesome. And it was so great because Liz is also there, and she's just caring about having a great time with a boy she really likes. And it was just amazing to watch the 3 of them. And then obviously the little part where he has his dad talk with Peter was spectacular, where he threatens him. Boom. You had the movie. The other scene that I absolutely loved, because he had his suit taken away and he had to find his inner strength. Peter's trapped under a ton of rubble in a building, and Tom Holland's performance in this scene is what sold the entire movie for me. He was desperate. He was a kid crying out for help. But then you see the reflection where he sees himself as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man in the water with his mask. And he just finds the strength inside to lift that building. And it was just, that whole sequence right there best part of the movie to me. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it really helped solidify my opinion. Because there's definitely some things that kind of got on my nerves really bad in the first viewing of this that definitely didn't bother me as much in the second one. If you are a Spider-Man aficionado and comic book just really, really strict on the comic books and hate when they change things, if you want them to keep true to it, you're going to be upset with this movie because they change a lot of small things. For me, it doesn't matter when they change ethnicities. It didn't matter back when they did it with Michael Clark Duncan and Kingpin, back in Daredevil. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. Changing, you know, MJ, Mary Jane to Michelle and calling her MJ, and Zendaya, and who admittedly had a very funny performance, even though it was really weird. Definitely changing MJ up. We're going to see how it goes going forward. I'm going to reserve judgment on that one. Mr. Flash Thompson, who's now played by a younger Indian boy. I actually, at this point, after at first being a little bit annoyed, because obviously, not that the ethnicity was different, it's just like he looks like somebody you would pick on. Not a bully. It was a little weird. And he kept calling him Penis Parker, and I got really annoying. I'm not going to lie to you about that. But, after thinking about it, I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Today's bullies are not necessarily just the jock type that smack people around. You know what I'm saying? Now, in the age of social media, there's a lot more psychological and just mental abuse and stress going on. And that's what this represents. That boy is rich. That boy has money and stature. And he is still smart because he's on the decathlon team. And I thought that was just a really clever way to update Flash Thompson and still make him bully Peter, but in a completely different way. Because physically bullying Peter, he's Spider-Man. He's not a physical threat at all. And we know this. And Spider-Man, Tom Holland as Peter Parker, knows this. So having just that mental anguish over the way he gets treated by him, I thought was brilliant. I really did. So now comes my couple of things that I didn't like very much at all. The Spidey suit has grown on me a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. But I still have a huge problem, even though the way they handled this and the way they did things, it really, really worked in the movie. It did. Especially because I loved Karen, the interaction between Jennifer Connelly and Tom Holland in the film as Karen and Peter. I thought that was really well done, and it added a sense of just continuity and continuing, speech. So Peter wasn't always talking to himself. I liked that. That was good. However, it really takes away from his genius a little bit. You get a little bit of it when he's making the web fluid. You get a little bit of it when he's trying to figure out the combinations and how to get out of that vault that he was locked in. And that's why I'm so glad that the suit got taken away in the middle of the movie and he had to figure out how to defeat the Vulture without it. Because it just seems to me like it was being too reliant and it was kind of neutering the Spider-Man that we know, who is a genius, and just being able to, feel that. And it just bothered me a little bit, He definitely, obviously, was getting frustrated with the, different types of web combination. I think they said like 723 web combinations. I don't know. I'm much happier that Peter gets to use his genius a little bit. And I think that they're going to continue with the kind of the iron suit. I know Tony Stark designed it and everything like that. And I think they'll continue on with that. But I don't believe they're going to continue to hinder Peter as a character. So maybe it's just a really great way to modernize Spider-Man, and maybe I just need to get over it. That's probably, I'm sure, what a few people will say in the comments. I need to just get over it. But the suit bothered me a little bit. I tell you what the big thing that killed me was, and both John Watts and Kevin Feige, who I don't know how to pronounce his name. Does anybody know how to pronounce his name? I don't think so. But when they they discuss this. Where is his damn Spidey sense? There's so many people who snuck up on him. Ned snuck up on him, figured out he was Spider-Man. At the end of the movie, Aunt May sneaks up on him. Great comedic moments. Don't get me wrong. Hilarious. How do they keep sneaking up on him? Nothing with his Spidey sense? Huh? And Vulture, I mean, he must have come up behind him like 3 or 4 times. You know? When he's running out of the building, when he's going to find Vulture again after the dance. Shocker just punches him right in the face. Knocks his web shooters out. Now he's in trouble. Where is his Spidey sense? And I know I've had a lot of people say, well, he was flipping out of the way of stuff all the time. Yeah, because he was aware that the damn thing was coming. He could hear it. You and I knew it was coming. Spider-Man. He's got a Spidey sense. Now, John Watts' explanation was, they have already done an amazing job of presenting that in the previous 2 incarnations of Spider-Man on screen, and we didn't want to give a visual cue. So John Watts is basically admitting, yeah, it doesn't exist. But if you listen to Kevin Feige's response, he's basically just saying the same thing, but that he hasn't really developed it yet, and it's something that he will look at later on. If that's the case, I understand. However, the Spidey sense is definitely something that is key to his character. It is, along with his agility, one of the things that allows for Spider-Man to compete with some of these guys who are even stronger than he is. You could see a lot of it happening in Civil War. He was able to use it, it seems like, and dodge out of the way of many things, even without a physical representation on the screen. So you don't have to necessarily make a visual cue and go all slow-mo-y. You don't have to necessarily do that. It would be nice if you could kind of do the zoom in like Raimi did to where you know that something's happening, but you don't have to. I mean, they did a great job of that, say like in the in-fight with Green Goblin and Spidey. He recognized, and you did the little noise, that the glider was coming, but they did it all in real time. They didn't do it to where, you know, you couldn't, it was just slow-mo like the Flash Thompson fight. That was just him discovering it. So maybe that'll happen in future movies, and once again, I just need to get over it. It's minor nitpicks. It's minor nitpicks that maybe could have got it to a 9. Definitely not the best Spider-Man movie of all time. Once again, Spider-Man 2, one of the best ever. Period. Spider-Man 1, the sense of wonder, it's so much more visceral. The stakes are so much higher. I mean, you could feel the sweat in those action scenes. I just think Raimi's style was better. And of course, you know, Michael Giacchino's score, it's not as good as Danny Elfman's. It's actually one of the better MCU scores, to be honest. It has a couple memorable little themes, but obviously doesn't hold a candle to Danny Elfman's themes. Obviously, those are going to continue to be the definitive themes that we associate with Spider-Man. No doubt about it. I think that, you know, I sound a little nitpicky. I was going to sound a lot more nitpicky before. And I'm glad I went back and saw it again. I really appreciate this movie. I really, really liked it. It is one of the best ones I've seen all year long. And, you know, is it better than, say, like, what I also rated in 8, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword? Yes. I would probably go back and put that probably back down to like a 7, or maybe even a 6 at this point, because I have seen it again. I guess I was just hyped because I love King Arthur. I love that story. But Spider-Man is a great addition to the MCU. I think the biggest thing that you can say about this movie that kind of drags it down is that it just feels like it's setting up for things that are bigger. It feels like it's setting up for things to come, like Avengers Infinity War, like a Spider-Man sequel, which has already been confirmed. And I liked that it was a small movie. I loved the fact that they dealt with small things, like what would Peter do if he didn't have something to swing on and he's running through a golf course with sprinklers firing off at him. That kind of stuff was great. And I love the little Ferris Bueller reference, even though, you know, they don't treat their audience with as much respect as they should by showing the movie in the middle of the sequence. I'm really happy with the end result. I'm very, very, very happy with the end result. I thought it was really well done. Thanks for those of you who stuck around to talk a little bit more in depth with me about this stuff. It's been a epic-sized review that I usually don't do anymore, but I just thought that getting on and talking about Spider-Man, since I know a lot of you guys really enjoy my opinion about the comic book world and these type of movies, that I get on and talk a little bit with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed that. Once again, I'm so sorry for the length of time between posts and videos dropped. I promise you that will not be the case very, very soon. I promise you that more content will be coming directly to you. And I am very, very glad that I have a sense and a direction in which I want to go. We're definitely going to have some Game of Thrones stuff coming up. Hopefully a few videos before the season starts this coming Sunday. And then we will definitely be reviewing those. I will have a first half review of Fear the Walking Dead coming out for Season 3A, the first half of it. So stay tuned for that. If you guys like this video, definitely hit that like button, because it really helps me out. If you know anything about YouTube's algorithms, obviously, if you care about anything to do with me, you'll like the video, you'll subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. Just get those videos out there if you really like what you see. That's all I ask. As always, I love you guys. Your support has been fantastic. I really, really appreciate it. I couldn't do this without you guys. You guys always encourage me to do more, even when I'm not feeling the greatest and things like that. And when I'm focused on other things, you guys keep me coming back, and I can't thank you enough for that. So, once again, an 8 for Spider-Man Homecoming. Tell me what you guys think of the movie in the comments below. I want to have a nice big discussion, so let me know exactly how you feel. I don't care what your opinion is, if you liked mine or disliked mine, if you need to get some hate off your chest by saying I'm wrong, go right ahead. I'd love to have the discussion. My name is Mike from the Super Wheeler Bros, and as always, my friends, have yourselves a super week.